There are several settings that control how the picking process will function and whether it is mandatory or a one- or two-step process. These settings include dimension groups, which set up the product storage and tracking dimensions required for picking, the item model group, which controls the registration requirements, and the accounts receivable setup parameters, which will control the setup for automatic picking. Let's open AX and take a look at all of these settings. We'll start with the tracking dimension groups and storage dimension groups, which are found in Product Information Management. Then we'll go to the Setup area and select the Dimension Groups form for storage dimension groups. On the storage dimension group, you'll be able to see which dimensions are activated for a particular item. It's important to note whether or not the blank Issue Allowed checkbox is selected for any particular dimension. If this checkbox is marked, then that particular dimension can be blank when you are issuing the items through the pick process. Similarly, on the Tracking Dimension Groups form, the same checkbox is available. You can see that here in the blank Issue Allowed. Next, let's take a look at the item model groups. The item model groups are found in Inventory Management, and then underneath the Setup area, in the Inventory folder, and then Item Model Groups. Here, there are several settings that will control how the picking will work. First is the Picking Requirements checkbox. You'll see that checkbox in the Physical Update group. It's important to note that you can only select this checkbox if the inventory policy is set for stocked product. So if we take a look at the FIFO example, I can optionally select the Picking Requirements checkbox. When this option is selected, it is mandatory that a picking list be posted on the sales order before a packing slip or invoice can be posted. You can also mark the Deductions Requirement checkbox, which will require that a packing slip is also posted for the sales order before the invoice can be posted. The other setting here is the Consolidated Picking method. You can see this Consolidated Picking method on the item model group and on the warehouse or the warehouse items. When you mark the checkbox here for Consolidated Picking method, you're indicating that the Advanced Warehouse Management functionality should be used. This setting can be overridden on a warehouse-by-warehouse basis or on the released products in the Warehouse Items form. Next, let's go take a look at the Accounts Receivable parameters. I'll switch over to Accounts Receivable. And then, underneath the Setup area, we'll open the Accounts Receivable Parameters form. Next, we'll want to select the Updates link on the left-hand pane. Here you can see several settings that control how a picking list will work. The first setting is the Use Default Language. The Use Default Language code checkbox indicates that the default language code from your company information setup should be used when you print the picking list. If this checkbox is not selected, the language on the picking list will be printed based on the customer's language preference. However, there is no translation of the customer's language. The company's default language is used instead. Next is the Automatic Reduction Picking List checkbox. You can select this checkbox to reduce the quantity on the picking list to match the quantity available. If the full quantity is not available in stock, in this manner, the picking list is not made for items that are not in stock. Notice, for this to work, you must generate the picking list from the order header by clicking the Picking List button in the Generate group of the action pane and not directly from the line. It's also important to note that if the Complete checkbox on the sales order line in the Line Details Fast tab on the General tab is selected An error will appear, and then you will be required to complete the full order and not only a portion of it. Next is the picking route status. Here you have two options, activated and completed. Select the completed option in this field to have the system automatically set the inventory transactions to pick when you update the picking list. You can select completed, for example, when the items sold are always in stock and therefore a response to the picking process is not needed. Select the activated option if you want to update the picking list manually and use a two-step picking process. Next, let's take a look at the sales order picking processes that are possible.